Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
2, 1.
Vinyl Tap.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
And I'm Habibi.
And this week on Vinyl Tap, we listened to Where Have I Known You Before by Chick Corea.
False by Return to Forever.
True, by Chick
Featuring-
Corea's band, Return to Forever.
Thank you.
Firstly, Rip Chick.
Rip Chick.
Yeah.
Fucking legend. Like actual.
What a dude.
Yeah. Changed music.
He really, yeah. He's one of those figures of the 20th century that's like just so influential.
Yep.
But he's not talked about as much as other figures with that same caliber, like, you know, Michael Jackson or something like that.
Well, he's not necessarily like pop icon,
No,
right?
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, over the course of music in the 20th century, he's extremely influential, but he's not talked about anywhere near as much as the popular icons.
You could say that about a lot of
You really
actual
could.
influential people who really did change music or like influence in a big way. Like often they're not the ones who get
Absolutely.
praise all the time.
I mean,
right?
people talk about how Michael Jackson changed things, but really, Quincy Jones. Anyway, Chick Corea.
Return to Forever.
Yeah, sorry.
Um,
Jazz Fusion, we're back at it
Now
again.
yeah. No worries, guys.
Here we are.
I'm here to provide your source of jazz fusion,
I
whether
still
you
don't-
wanted it or not.
Part of a balanced breakfast.
I still don't know if I have words to talk about this. There's just so much going on all the time. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. But on a single listen through, trying to like take notes and pinpoint little things that are happening is really difficult.
Herein lies the issue with the format of this podcast.
Yeah, how to find like the detail in something that is
So fucking dense.
If
a
this
dense
didn't
assault.
have the nice where have piano parts in between, this album might have killed me.
Yeah.
I'm so happy those were in there to break it up. But it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was something. I really liked the space disco energy that was like that was like slicing up the real heavy fusion side of things. That was really nice to hear, like those disco grooves and like the that was neat.
Yeah.
And obviously Chick's like mad synth collection too.
Yeah.
Fucking mental.
Was there like I know we're jumping like right towards the end, but like there was this really cool sequencer part on something that was just real neat that stood out to me. Like I really love to hear that pioneering kind of like, we're just gonna chuck this arpeggiator on and like
Which that's
it was after the intro of the Pharaoh Kings track. Right?
Yeah.
Intro dies down and then it's just like
Yeah.
sequence time. I thought that was real neat.
Was that
That was
sequencer?
I don't know. That was a huge song.
Yeah.
There was a
that
lot.
that
There
was
was
a
a lot.
There
in
was
there.
song.
there was like so many songs just in that one song. Was that a sequencer or was that just like
He could just be
Chick just
hammering
playing
It
it?
could just be playing it, but it sounded like that evolving kind of filter sound where it sounded
Yeah.
like. But then he does have the two hands as far as
Yeah.
I'm aware. So who knows?
Maybe three. Like
That's the
Listening to
secret.
this, honestly, maybe three.
yeah.
Even just the solo piano parts.
He's incredible.
So gorgeous.
Yeah.
I
mean, like all of them, like the drums, I wasn't sure. It kind of, I felt like it could have been multi-tracked with the percussion as well, because it's just like,
Right.
it's a 4-piece, right? So
I don't know.
This sounded like a 10
It's a
piece.
what piece?
it's a 4-piece, yeah.
They had how many?
That's illegal.
That's what I mean. So like with the percussion and the drums, it literally sounded like if it was all done in one take, the dude's got like
None. No way.
4 arms.
There's
like
no
he's
fucking
just
way.
No, that drummer
Hey,
was
baby,
not doing those.
There were
percussion parts.
tubular bells at
Yeah.
the same time as the disco space.
They
rock.
were so
Like,
cool.
There's no
Yeah.
fucking way.
I really don't know.
The musicianship across this album is off the charts.
So the guitarist,
mental.
Dimiola.
Oh, is this him?
Yeah, this is him.
Great.
19 years old.
Get out of town. Shut the
I'm
front door.
Done with the podcast and anything music related from now on. I am past the point of anything happening.
Yeah. which is insane.
God.
Yeah.
How old was Chick when this was happening?
I don't know. I think like mid-20s, late 30s, early 30s. I think around that age.
Man.
There's still time.
It's still time.
Okay.
God.
Yeah, the musicianship in this is just
Insane.
off the charts.
I mean, as most jazz fusion stuff is, but I
I want to hear a jazz fusion album made by people who have no clue what they're doing. I think that'd be
Strong
hilarious.
Benjamin.
No, but that wasn't fusion. That was just him. That was just a straight up blues jazz album. Hey,
Yeah, I think so.
I want like this style, like the T-square shit made by people who are worse at their instruments than I am.
I think part of the charm for me for like jazz fusion is that I think in essence it doesn't really take itself that seriously. Like I don't know,
having fun.
they're just having fun. There's this I get a sense that like they're playing really incredible stuff, and then there's like all these really like just truly Geeksville moments where like they'll like finish a run with like a ding, and it's like all these like little kind of charming, silly moments.
You have to be giggling about because we
Surely,
were giggling
right?
about.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the way they ended the whole album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one track to finish, and then there's just like two little like 16ths on like a conga.
On the conga.
Like after everyone had finished. Unreal.
Yeah, I think that's sort of, for me, what makes really good jazz fusion is when there's just that kind of sense of like, it's a little bit silly.
It's like four wizards just like trying to make each other laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Are these guys not wizards?
They are. Just the unexpectedness of you saying it like that got me.
Glad
So,
they- Is it common for a jazz fusion album to be paced out like this with these 3 piano pieces, like giving you a break? Because I thought that was a really unique breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
I really, really love that decision. And those pieces, I'm going to jump straight to it. They're my favorites, clearly. And they just destroy me.
Yeah.
Like, the first time it happened, I was not expecting it at all. It was a short little piano piece, and it melted me. He's incredible.
Yeah, I'd like to hear you talk about those in depth, because my notes for those were a very nice piano, and then even nicer piano.
Wow.
And then I had another one that said nice piano again.
Nice.
Yeah.
I also really like the doubling down on like steering into the skid and naming them, like where have I loved you before?
Yeah.
Where have I danced with you before? Where have I known you before? And then titling the album around that, and really like making a thing of like, hey, it's not just kind of add-on, it's like inbuilt into the
your
structure of
You
it all.
can turn an album with 0 lyrics into a concept album just by doing that. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And actually, so Wherever I Loved You Before kind of ends with this, I guess like these like runs, I suppose, that kind of, they sound like chimes, I suppose, if they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then the next song starts with that.
Yeah, I
And
was-
there's these
With
really,
the roads, right?
Yeah. And like these really nice moments, how they just, all of those piano sections just tie straight into the next song and sort of finish off what you've just heard, and they're like, there's a lot of thought into it. Also with those piano bits, I'd be interested to get your opinion. So like, Wherever I Danced With You Before, I was
Sure.
sort of getting like Aaron Copland vibes of like that kind of like classical American sort of that, and then
Yeah, it's got that like kind of, there's a bit of cakewalk rhythm in there.
yeah, and then Where Have I Known You Before was like almost like a what is it, Pavane of a Dying Princess? It had like that sort of sense to it in terms of its rhythm. Like, I don't know, there were
Some
these
very romantic harmony in there.
yeah, or like Ravel kind of just like
Yeah.
very it was cool.
For those of us, myself in the room, who are not keeping up to speed with the words you're throwing around right now, can you go a bit more in depth and explain what you're talking about?
These are pianists, I imagine.
So the piano is a keyboard instrument invented in the late 18th century.
So Ravel is a classical composer, and I actually
Careful with that word.
Sorry. So what's something really like everyone would know from Ravel?
Well, the bolero.
Bolero. Da, 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 da.
And it's got that snare that goes da, 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 da.
Okay.
You know the one.
Yeah.
Everyone fucking knows it. So that's Ravel. And if you listen
The,
to some of his stuff, like there's inspiration being drawn and I really like how there's sort of those parallels between this and kind of like, I don't know exactly what he's doing, but he's evoking
Like the early 20th century
yeah.
modernist.
sort of like
Yeah.
In
classical
all
music tropes.
3 of the pieces?
No,
or
that one in
does it
particular.
That one in
change?
particular, and then like earlier on, like the Where Have I Danced With You Before, it was more like Copeland, that kind of like
Americana.
Yeah, that style.
Whereas
And
Ravel's like through and through French.
Would
Yeah.
you then assume that Where Have I Loved You Before is probably riffing on someone as
maybe,
well?
but I wasn't able to pick what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't there yet. I was still just. It's very short, and
It
I
is.
was. I was still taken aback by how surprising the piece's inclusion was on the album to actually think about it at the
Yeah.
time. I'd have to listen to it again,
Yeah.
and I will. Where Have I Danced With You Before? It's in this like B minor pentatonic vibe, which gives it that like open, gazing out on the prairie. And there's this active rhythm, and then it ends with these quartal chords, which is like entirely made out of fourths. So that's like extremely open ended,
Right. Is
and
that why it gives it that?
open ended, which leads into like this spacey vibe of Beyond the Seventh Galaxy.
Again, before we're moving on, for those who don't know,
So most chords you hear are made out of thirds, which is like the interval. You just skip a single note and that's it. Whereas these chords that Chick's playing are quartal, so they're made out of fourths, which is like a more open, spacey interval.
Can you sing a quartal chord?
I can only sing one note at a time.
Yeah, no, as in like, can you sing like 3/4?
a broken chord.
Ba-dum, ba-da. It's the open strings of a guitar.
Right. Look at you
Right.
go. Yeah, so if you could the guitar at home, just
Yeah,
strum that
do
shit.
that.
But
Except
not
for the
the
G
B
string.
string.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not the B string.
Pesky B.
Yeah, I think jazz and rock go well together.
Well, that's the other
Yeah.
thing. Based on the other jazz fusion we've listened to, this felt a lot more accessible for someone who has not listened to a lot of this.
Really?
Because of the spacing, but also just, I think the tones and sounds and even just the structure was more accessible and listenable, especially compared to, as much as you love the Jan Garbarek, that was a lot harder to
Yeah.
sit there through. And even I think this is more accessible than the T-Square because it feels like a more cohesive whole, and you're getting the little breaks
Well-
between each song as well.
This isn't so long after the emergence of jazz fusion, is it?
No, I'm pretty sure.
So this is like where it all
right at the
begins. So it
start,
makes
eh?
sense that would be like a good launching point for your involvement in jazz fusion.
What's your jazz fusion involvement like, and how was this experience?
I feel like everyone has Mario Kart. you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go off.
It's so true.
Yeah, it was really neat. It was cool to like hear the genre kind of finding its feet, I guess, and having like these influences from the time taken in, like these kind of like rockier parts, and then like you're hearing, like proto disco kind of stuff
Yeah.
happening as well. Like you're hearing like those real open disco beats, and then you've just got like jazz party on top of it. And then I think it was in Beyond the Seventh Galaxy where you've got this like real gnarly fuzz guitar and bass, like
Yeah.
these syncopated parts, and then it like launches into a disco bit. And then there's those like really cool like dotted triplet accents that everyone's hitting. And then I had like this Blue Oyster Cult note because it just went into like this riffy bit, and then it went into like anime intro kind of like with the real like over the top like ascending epic uplifting guitar parts. So like there's heaps in this.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the
And you're drawing all these parallels to other things that came afterwards.
Because I was
Yeah.
going to say, for me, a lot of what went on, depending on what you add to it, you can color it to how you want. Like if you add brass to some of this, you're getting like a Cat Empire kind of sound. If you
Yeah.
add like Japanese vocals, you're getting an anime kind of sound.
Yeah.
If you,
Yeah.
Like depending on what you pair with this, you can kind of color it to other genres that have come afterwards.
Yep. I think it's really cool. It's for me the mix works so well because it's mostly tonal. So that rock vibe is coming from like really heavy. Well, actually, correct me if I'm wrong here, but really heavy drums, like that are very active and full and kind of punchy, I suppose would be the word I'd use.
And there's a bit of dirt in the guitar.
And the guitar has a bit of dirt, and sometimes it cleans up, but it still gets like that little crunch just subtly sort of happening.
It is nice when they lean into those parts. They
Yeah.
do like pull it back to like a straighter like 4/4 feel, or at least they're like digging into the quarters a little bit more when they want it to feel that way.
Yeah.
Before they flick into something a bit more like peppy and yeah. So I think it's nice. Like you feel them all like drop down into those moments.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was real neat, really clever.
Yeah, there's, I don't know, is it in Earth Juice? Yeah. Good old
Fucking
Earth
Earth
Juice.
Juice.
Good banging. Stanley Clarke just fucking slapping. He's just punching fat lines.
Is he the
Stanley
bassist?
Clarke too.
Yeah, Stanley
This
Clarke.
is a good band.
Yeah,
Very good
so
band.
Lenny White on drums, Stanley Clarke on bass, Aldi
Miola.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And fucking Chick
And Chick Corea.
That's
It's
not
like
bad.
it's the lineup. It's yeah. And they do these moments all through, but like sort of third quarter in, I suppose, of Earth Juice, they did like it opens up. So like they've been grooving and there's like this really like regular sort of
4 on the floor.
yeah, kind of just doom, 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 doom. And then they just have these moments where the whole like all of the rhythm just kind of pauses and everyone's just sustaining notes. The drums kind of go into like washing and fills and whatever, and the lines that are on top of that kind of soar over the top, and it's really cool. It happens all through. Earth Juice, I think, has a particularly good example of it. I really love that effect, and it's something that's sort of you can hit or miss with fusion, like because it's sort of it really needs a lot of sort of active energy that kind of morphs into this really open space, and then it needs to sort of just get sucked back into the original activity, and like a lot of fusion kind of misses that, I feel.
I think fusion creates tension by like dealing between those two extremes, right? Between the active, energetic fucking disco shit, and then the open, spacey, whoa, the fucking extended chords and the bloopy lines and the, like just soaring up the neck of the bass, and tying between those two extreme sounds is how
Well, there's a lot of
it's how a
parallels.
lot of the sound is carried.
There's a lot of parallels between this and like prog rock. I think this is actually very influenced by prog rock. And
Yeah.
I'm about to fucking say some heathenist shit.
Go for
But,
it.
like-
That's why we started the podcast.
So for me to
For you specifically
Yeah,
to say
specific-
some heathenist.
yeah, prog rock sort of explores like creating tension and creating interest through like developing sections, right? So when it's not necessarily about like the transition between verse chorus, it's about like how you can create energy or create tension or release that just through other elements, right? Outside of necessarily just
Changing section.
changing sections, right? I think that's where the parallels between this and prog rock are really, really strong.
What about this is heathenist?
I don't know. I just don't know
Okay.
much about prog rock, so
Well, it sounds right to me.
I think that's pretty bang on the money.
Yeah.
The one that you do see the differences though, with, like somewhere like prog rock where they'll still there's like that classic. They'll do the sus4 resolve to a major trick, like that real King Crimson-y kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there was one track in here that like the phrase would end on a sus4, and
this
it go
stayed
didn't
there.
didn't go
Yeah.
there, and that just really upsets me, you know. And like that's all the tension in the world for me. I'm just like, and where's the resolve? I'm like, it's not there. It goes up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great. That was a nice surprise for me, expecting...
was it great or was it painful?
well, I mean, it was great because that's where you want the tension. But
Yeah.
so, in that it did its
Right.
job perfectly.
I think the first
But it
time,
still upsets me.
The first time you brought Jazz Fusion to us was T Square, and I said that it's my favorite album that we've listened to, and I think it's because Jazz Fusion like just strikes me in such a place because it's like I've come to realize listening to this album that the music I like is tense and tight, and like those are the two qualities I'm looking for in pretty much
Right.
everything. I've just come to realize that. Thank you, Chick Corea, for showing me. And that's why I'm so in love with jazz fusion.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You don't find that it gets too busy and intense?
No, I don't.
Right. Because, like, this album in particular, as an album experience, really needs those breaks.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because there's only so long you can sit there through an 8-minute track going, wow,
Whoa! Yeah.
that was great, and then it just keeps happening,
Yeah, you
and
have
then
to
you need a little
turn
sit
yourself
down.
off and then back on and to be like, what am I listening to?
Yeah.
Yeah, those piano pieces to break it up. I think maybe that does make this the best jazz fusion album I've heard, and I haven't heard too many, I guess. But like across the album, creating a flow of tension and release is what that does. And it's not as though those albums, those songs, the piano ones, aren't like static. That they go places too. He ends, Where Have I Known You Before? It's solidly in D, right? And like, sure, he explores the Mixolydian mode. He has a C major chord in there, which is out of key. But then he ends it on this F sharp major with a 6/9 extension, and it's like, bro, so fucking
jazz.
Yeah. I pressed the jazz button on my keyboard. And he did that what is it? It's like a list thing of that's why I say that this one's really romantic.
Yeah.
Of anticipating the note he's doing an octave above. So he falls to it from an octave, which gives it like this spacey. But anyway,
Chicory is really fucking great at that, and it happens all through this. Like these,
I also noticed
the huge
his
interval
left
jumps,
hand
right, in
technique is
melody.
fucking insane.
Yeah.
Those chords he's doing when his right hand's just noodling away. Give the left hand more credit, everyone, because the right hand's just doing a simple ass melody, right? And the left hand's doing all the work.
Yeah, I mean, I can't play piano for shit, so right hand is...
Well, over the course of listening to this album, I've realized that I can't either.
Yeah. I don't know. His piano playing is fucking sick. All of the
He's incredible.
all of the musicianship. I really love the guitar and all of this stuff is really, really cool. Like, it's very rocky for me.
Yep.
It really was, like, tonally as well, and I think it found a nice spot in between, like, very, overtly jazz guitar sounding, but then also, like, I mean, it had enough to kind of hook me, and I don't have, like, a heap of a jazz background, but it was real neat to just hear a really sick guitarist, having a great time. But I think the way that I was trying to figure out where the drummer was locking, like whether he was like just pulled into the bass, because there were like some really cool like ostinati through the piece that I thought were good. I was trying to figure out if like drums were locking to Chick's left hand, or if in parts he was flipping and playing with the guitar. It was all kind of floaty, but it worked really well. I think that's what happens when you have great musicians playing together. Like no one really had to be playing to anybody, but they just know when to like lock together, and they know when they can go off and like do their own thing. It was a heap of fun.
So when you say there was disco,
Oh,
what and where and what is disco?
Disco.
Like the
Okay,
disco
so
beat?
explain
Almost
it.
disco beats in there at some points, wasn't there?
Heaps.
Yeah.
It was full of disco beats, like
Yeah.
and I've just got notes everywhere that just says like hi-hat spits. Like there were open hats everywhere,
Yeah.
and especially I had a note for space disco in Earth Juice, and that sounded like the origins of space disco, where you've just got like 4 on the floor, you've got like open hats on 2 and 4, and like a really solid
for the
downbeat.
people in the
back.
room.
On the, so
And 4 on the floor, he needs a kick drum on every beat.
yeah. So you've got like this really locked down groove that doesn't really go anywhere, and then
It's such a great bedrock to build stuff on.
totally, and then this sets like the groundwork for everything that happened in the late 70s,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like that's the entire movement, and I thought there was more disco in what's this track? Shadow of Low, that did
Yeah.
everything. That went,
Yeah.
It started like real floaty and tinkly, and then there's a groove, and then it goes jazzy and syncopated again, and then eventually it gets to this disco part via 2 very like dirty, like the subdivisions. I thought were really neat the way they broke down like their rhythmic sections where it'd be like we had like some eighths, and then it went like even slower to like this quarter kind of pulse, and it got like even dirtier, and then it's like disco now.
Yeah.
I thought the way they flicked between those rhythmically was really neat.
It's really cool. And something I noticed in that I hadn't really picked out before was like the slap bass would occasionally just appear and slap you.
Yeah.
And then it would kind of disappear, and you're like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? And then you come back out and it's like,
I think that's the trick with like slap bass, is that it has to be used sparingly, or else it's just like, oh my god,
horrendous.
shut up.
Yeah.
You know? Which is nice when it's just like a little treat every now and then.
Yeah.
He comes out from his corner, literally slaps you, and then leaves.
And then just
It's
leaves.
great.
Yeah. And when you couple that with, you know, disco beats, it's quite a sound. Favorite songs?
It's gonna be one of the piano interludes, but I don't know which one.
I'd like to refer to them as a trilogy and just say that's
The
Where Have
three.
I Blank You Before is my favorite song.
Yeah, I may agree with that.
They're so beautiful. I think if I did have to pick one, it would be Where Have I Known You Before. The
Fair
last
enough.
one of the three.
Yeah, I think Vulcan Worlds, which I realized I've coined it Vulcan Love Worlds in my head.
Nice.
Even though I know that's just because I think it's extra geeky, but you know, you can't go wrong with those tubular bells. Like,
I love how they're
That's
paired
my
with the
favourite
guitar.
too.
You never hear that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, really, just such a
Who does that?
like geeky, cool, like funky, bizarre, just song where it just really comes out with like everything. Like the whole album, aside from the Where Have I Blanked You Before, the whole album is sort of summarized in that one track. Just
I think that was my favorite as well. And yeah, that cool bit where like they had that one riff like modulating like up was like circle of fifths. So just like
Yeah.
this, like
And it
lifting
just
it,
kept
lifting it, but
going.
the run sort of goes up and down, and then it goes up and down. It was that was real neat.
That came out of a modulation, and then they used that like rising through the circle to get back to the original key, and like I could feel it arriving. And when he got there, it was like, oh!
And they did it again later.
Yeah,
too.
they did.
They did it twice. It was crazy. And again, like rhythmically, like some of the stuff they did, I thought like you had like an offbeat feel to a downbeat feel. That was kind of cool. So you like up and then you're locked again. It was real neat.
yeah,
It was a real neat track.
a
I
real
like
neat
that.
track.
It's a
Yeah.
real neat album.
Click above to find out what else we've listened to this month.
Click below to support the artist we just listened to.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode.